I'm doing good. So far, so good, I guess, today. First media visit. I ain't never had a media visit. And I love you, Mama.
This jolly boy is Blaine Milam. He is on death row for taking his baby daughter's life.
It's just so graphic, the violence that was inflicted upon her, that you don't want to, but you just have to rail back for just a second.
Why would he hurt her?
Huh?
Why would he hurt her?
He wouldn't.
Why would he lie to me then?
Huh?
The story of Amora Carson makes very little sense. It's as outrageous as it's simply heartbreaking. Jessica Carson and Blaine Milam were not supposed to care for her. They weren't even supposed to be around children at all. And yet, Amora was in their care from day one. 13 months after her birth, she suffered one of the worst ends we have covered on this channel. What happened in December 2008? And how do demons and crystal mix into this story? This is the tragic case of Amora Carson. It was December 2nd, 2008, when emergency services in Texas received a chilling call.
I was sitting right here at this desk where we are now, and I received a phone call from the lieutenant of the Russ County Sheriff's Department CID division. And he told me that they had a baby, gave me the location, and he said, "You need to come out here."
Coming upon a crime scene like Detective William Brown saw that day is tough on anyone, even the most experienced investigators.
Very strange, very strange. You've got a small child lying on the floor, apparently a victim of some kind of brutality. I don't know a better word to describe it than just brutality. And you immediately you ask yourself, well, what's happened here? What took place? You know, what or who could do something like this to a baby?
It was nothing short of a bad horror movie, the kind where people leave the cinema mid-film, saying it's too far-fetched or too gory. But this wasn't a movie. It was real life, and a 13-month-old girl had just lost her life in an indescribable way. The crime was so horrific that it had to be moved to a courthouse in a different county just to find an unbiased jury.
Now, when you actually see a picture of the horror that was inflicted on her, in my opinion, it repels a person. She's just had her humanity robbed from her, taken from her. It's just so graphic, the violence that was inflicted upon her, that you don't want to, but you just have to rail back for just a second.
Other people can't hold back their tears, even a full decade after the horrific incident.
Yeah, she laughed a lot. Used to make funny noises or little duck noises. And she'd just start cracking up.
This was baby Amora Bain Carson. She loved every adult in her life. She would simply smile at people, sing along with them, and be kind and curious like any baby.
She was a great little girl. She was beautiful.
And you were not even the biological father, but you were daddy for her.
Yes.
That was the first thing she ever said.
Yes, sir.
Blaine Milam says he loved his daughter very much. Her first word was dad, and he loved to give her unconditional love, even though he was just 18 years old.
That was a joke.
But were it not for Blaine and his girlfriend, Jessica Carson, little Amora would still be alive today. Blaine Milam grew up in rural Texas in various trailer homes. His father pulled him out of the school system when he was 9 years old. Blaine seemed cool with it, but it's hard to know if he was happy or was unstable situation at home with a superstar personality. In January 2008, Blaine met Jessica Carson. He was 18, she was 17, and like many teenagers, they fell hard for each other. Jessica had just had a baby daughter with someone else. Amora Carson was born November 12, 2007, but Blaine didn't care. In fact, he was so enamored with Jessica that he proposed to her on prom night. She shed happy tears and said yes.
Whenever we first met, she was a great woman. She was very energetic.
They were soon engaged and moved into Blaine's Longwood apartment. In the spring of 2008, the very young couple bought a Ouija board. It was Jessica's idea. She wanted to communicate with her deceased father. You see, Jessica's father had taken his life when she was only 10 years old. She was the one who discovered his body. It's hard to imagine the trauma a moment like this leaves on a 10-year-old child. It's safe to say, Jessica never recovered from this. As a teenager, Jessica would say that she received answers from her father, guidance from the other world. Only he knew what he told her, she said. It could only be his voice making its way into her head. But as Jessica played with the Ouija board more and more, she started to believe that Blaine's apartment was possessed. So she convinced her boyfriend to move, together with their baby, into Blaine's mother's house in Tatum, Rusk County. This was a 1,000 people town known for peace, quiet, and giant outdoor spaces. It was the perfect place for baby Amora to grow up, they thought. Meanwhile, Blaine's landlord noted a few things after the couple moved out. Jessica and Blaine had left the apartment completely trashed. There was moldy food in the fridge, and there was a light bulb full of crystal. There was also a knife stored in the toilet tank. Around this point in time, Jessica's friends noted a change in her behavior. She was once a fashionable, outgoing girl who made friends everywhere she went. Now she looked disheveled and tired, and would hardly come out of the house to meet her old friends. Of course, it can't be easy to have to raise a baby at the age of 18, or any age, but there was more to it than that, Jessica's loved ones thought. There was. Blaine was not a good influence. Before he met Jessica, he had just been charged with hurting an 11-year-old girl. He was ordered to spend 180 days in jail starting August 2008, but he was released just 48 days later. He was also put on the offenders list and ordered not to be within 200 feet of premises where children gather. This also meant he should not have been living with Jessica's baby daughter. While it's unclear how his childhood was, homeschooled by his dad, I truly believe something was not right. In September 2008, Blaine's dad passed away from a stroke, and things between Blaine and Jessica took a turn for the worse. Blaine was increasingly violent. One of Jessica's friends remembers a disturbing incident. The two were having an argument when Blaine pulled out a weapon. He got into Jessica's car, and when she got in too, he aimed and fired at the floorboard. Blaine was everything a partner shouldn't be: violent, manipulative, and controlling. By October 2008, Jessica was no longer speaking with her family. In fact, she told people that her mother was responsible for her father's death. When friends wanted to visit, she said they couldn't. She wasn't allowed to leave the house, not even while Blaine was working. Blaine would even log into her social media accounts to control her conversations. He was sick with jealousy and had no respect or empathy for his girlfriend. Being in Tatum now, Blaine also omitted to register as an offender in the new town, and the court never bothered to keep track of him. And wait, that's not Blaine's worst manipulation yet. Remember how Jessica believed the former apartment was possessed? Well, she came to believe that Blaine was possessed too. How did Blaine react? He said, "Sure I am." But through the demon that came into him, he said he could talk to God. He told her, "God says there are things that you don't need to know right now." This was enough for Jessica to stop questioning her boyfriend. Now, a quick reminder that these two were smoking crystal. This might explain at least a layer of the unspeakable horrors that are about to happen. On December 1st, 2008, Blaine woke Jessica to tell her that Amora was possessed by a demon and was walking. Yeah, that's why a 13-month-old starts walking. Blaine even accused Jessica of not being truthful with him and told her that the demon had now taken control of Amora's body as punishment. But Blaine was high on crystal. Blaine then told Jessica that God had spoken to him and instructed him on how to do an exorcism on Amora. Jessica just accepted Blaine's plan to exorcise her baby daughter. She remained in the living room watching TV while Blaine took Amora to the master bedroom. Jessica would later tell detectives that Amora resembled Chucky or Gage Creed from Pet Sematary. If you haven't read Stephen King's book or watched the 1989 movie based on it, little Gage passes away accidentally. His father takes him to the mysterious pet cemetery from which he emerges as a zombie. According to Jessica, Amora was biting Blaine in a crazed way as he was trying to exorcise her. But Jessica also said she heard horrific cries from the other room. They were coming from her daughter. A few moments later, Blaine said Amora had run away, but she was just beginning to walk. There was no way she could run off. Jessica entered the bedroom and Blaine told her Amora was hiding under the bed. Reportedly, Jessica looked under the bed, saw her daughter was fine, and left, as Blaine had ordered her to do. But at this point, Amora was anything but fine. The couple then drove to Walmart with Amora in the back seat. On the way there, Blaine explained that he was willing to sell his soul to the devil to gain Amora's release from demonic possession. Jessica urged him not to do it. She said she would rather have her daughter go to heaven now than live with 2 possessed people forever. Blaine said, "Okay, if that's what you wish." He made it look like it was Jessica's decision to hurt Amora. What the detectives found inside this couple's home on December 2nd cannot be described here. Amora had been exorcised in the most brutal way. Her injuries were so bad that it could not be determined which one led to her untimely death. Any one of them could have been fatal. At 10:30 a.m. on December 2nd, it was Blaine who called 911.
My name is Blaine Milam, and my daughter, I just found her dead.
How old's your daughter?
13 months.
Did he really think detectives wouldn't put 2 and 2 together? The detectives who responded to the call interviewed both Blaine and Jessica at the scene. They said they were gone for an hour the night before.
About an hour flies by, and between that hour and a half, we walked down here, walk in the house, and she wasn't nowhere to be found. We're searching for her, and there's a hole in my mama's bathroom.
Okay.
Alright, that's where she was.
Yep, he'd put Amora in a hole in the bathroom. Now he was telling the detective that he found her this way. Blaine and Jessica were read their Miranda rights and taken to the sheriff's office. In his official interrogation, Blaine sounded almost offended that he would be considered a suspect. He said Jessica was his fiancée and Amora was his daughter. How could he ever harm them? During her interview, Jessica began crying. At first, detectives thought she was innocent.
Why would he hurt her?
Huh?
Why would he hurt her?
He wouldn't.
Why would he lie to me then?
Huh?
But minutes into the interrogation, she began referring to Amora as that baby. Something was off.
I would never hurt that baby.
She then told the whole story of how she and Blaine met and all about the stomach-turning exorcism. The couple was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. On December 11th, detectives did a full search of the couple's trailer home. They found overwhelming DNA evidence belonging to Amora and connecting Blaine to the horrendous crime.
They discovered traces in there. They discovered some other physical evidence in there, some clothing, and several different things that were later used in the actual trial as evidence.
2 days later, Blaine contacted his aunt from jail and asked her to help dispose of a piece of evidence he'd buried under his trailer. Instead, his aunt phoned the sheriff. They retrieved a pipe wrench containing Amora's DNA. It indicated the worst kind of thing you can imagine. An orthodontist also compared Blaine and Jessica's dental records to the teeth marks on Amora's body. At least 8 matched Blaine, and at least 1 matched Jessica. Yep, she was involved too. In January 2009, Blaine contacted his nurse and said he wanted to confess. "I'm going to confess I did it, but Miss Shirley, the Blaine you know did not do this. My dad told me to be a man and I've been reading my Bible. Please tell Jessica I love her." Jessica also admitted to the role in her daughter's death. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Blaine was given the ultimate sentence. His attorney presented evidence that he is intellectually disabled as an argument to appeal his sentence. Reportedly, his IQ is in the low 70s and he is very easily manipulated. His guilt, Blaine's attorney argued, is mitigated by his lack of education beyond 4th grade, and he was under the influence of heavy narcotics when he took Amora's life. Sure, but how does that excuse what he did?
Well, I brought the closing argument, or part of the closing argument that I used in the Carson trial, because there's a moment in time that, to me, really captured what was occurring that moment.
The prosecutor showed a photo of Amora's car seat thrown on a dirt road. That showed criminal intent. He also pointed out CCTV footage where Blaine and Jessica were trying to obtain money from old stuff around the house. Their plan was to run away.
In the pawn shop, he had some old tools. Like one of them was an old electric chainsaw that he was trying to pawn for money.
The couple called 911 hours after Amora passed. Between the two events, they drove around town shopping, pawning, and putting gas in their car's tank. There was nothing that could make Blaine or Jessica look innocent. No one forced them to take crystal, and people with low IQs don't naturally take their own children's lives. As for their demonic obsessions,
Jessica seemed to have a fascination with horror movies, but I submit that was just one more excuse, and it was one more justification that the defense came up with to try to turn your mind off from the fact that they were just evil.
Blaine was scheduled to die on January 21st, 2021. However, the date was stayed and remanded to a lower court for further proceedings. A new date has not been set.
How can you believe in a Ouija board?
Hey, just after a while, I guess it gets in your head.
Blaine speaks as if he was under Jessica's influence, but according to Jessica and several of her friends and family, it was the other way around. Blaine worked hard to separate Jessica from her loved ones, and when her obsession wouldn't stop, he used it to convince her to remove her baby from their lives. Blaine insists that he wasn't himself when he did it. It was Satan, narcotics, you name it, but not himself.
I didn't kill that girl. I didn't kill my little girl.
Blaine can construct his story in any way he can to feel better about what he did, but the facts remain the same, and the facts are too sad to even think about. Meanwhile, Amora's tiny heart-shaped copper plaque in the Rosewood Park Cemetery honors her short, unfortunate life. She was a happy kid with her whole life ahead of her. The end she met is something that should never happen to anyone, ever. Let's hope that no other baby will endure what poor Amora went through in 2008. Hey, thanks for watching. What do you think about this case? Do you know of other similar stories? And before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. See you next time.